Hello and welcome to A Life of Creation. My name is Chad and I'm the host of this channel. If you like what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe. Click the notification button so that you know when new videos are released. Today we're talking to Justin Bawinkel. He is one of the three brothers who started the Celtic punk band Flatfoot 56, and he is now an engineer in the aerospace and nuclear research industry. And he is answering the 10 questions. So let's get into it. Well, welcome to A Life of Creation. I'm here with Justin Bawinkel, and he is about to answer the 10 questions. Question 1. What does it mean to you to live a life of creation?
I think everyone has something inside of them that is driving them towards uh, creating something, and no matter what it looks like. And I think for me, it looks a lot different than some other people who are more on the artistic side of creativity. Me, it's very technical, and I still have this desire to do it. I still have this innate, I want to build something. I want to design and manufacture and cut it out and piece it together and bolt and assemble, like all that stuff. I want to do those things, and I love the finished product. And I think uh, to kind of stifle that or to not do that is goes against kind of who we are, in some form or fashion. So I think just allowing yourself that outlet and allowing yourself to use the talents that are inside of you or the passions that you have. I think that's kind of like creativity is part of like your full self, and like who you are as a person. And I think that should be our goal, is to live life as our full self. So like to live and keep that peace inside of your life, and in your daily life is you just like living your full life,
Right.
and not just like hacking out some piece because it doesn't fit with the regular scheduled program. It's like I go to work and I eat and I watch a bunch of Netflix. It's like it's like um, I think that's not you being your full person. So
Yeah.
I think to live a life of creation is to not count out that aspect of your life. I love who you are. So, and I think it's supremely important. It's just like anything else. It's like if you deny any sort of passion that you have in your life, it's like maybe it's there for a reason. Maybe that's given. And maybe it's not just like some fluke or some chemistry inside of you. Maybe it's like that's a God-given talent that you should explore and cultivate and try to expand upon. And I think you'll find fulfillment in that. So,
I mean, it's interesting to think about how much, pursuing a passion, even minimal, as much as you can,
mhm.
brings you so much more joy than just sitting on the couch and watching a movie
For sure, yeah.
and it's like you have these ideas and these thoughts and desires to go create something. Like you said, it's like, why would you stifle that?
Yeah. It I mean, like, when I make something like hardware day, that's like a common term that we use, like, in engineering. It's like hardware day is you've spent tons of hours researching and testing and simulating and designing a product, right? No matter what it is. For me, it happens to be like a lot of technical components or assemblies for different aerospace or nuclear articles for safety and different components for testing out these devices that I'm working on. You create a design, do some drawings, you do all your tolerancing, you do all your science to like make sure that what you're making will work, at least to the best of your to the best of your abilities. You run it through a simulation so that you can test the strains and stresses and forces and everything on the product that you're building. And you send it out to a machinist, or you start machining it yourself in some cases. Um, and when you're done, you have this piece that you know intimately, like this piece or pieces or components or assemblies that you know everything about. You know the chamfer, the radiuses, all the holes and all the facets of it, and you know how it goes together, and you know why.
Right.
And now you're holding it in your hands. And it's like the culmination of all this work, and you're just like, this is awesome, and nobody else cares because it's just like, well, it looks like a chunk of aluminum, you know.
Right.
But you put so much into it, and when you get it back, like it gets shipped back to you or whatever, or you finish it on the lathe or some mill that you're working on, and you have it in your hand and you get to assemble it. It's like, this is rad, like
Yeah.
this is fun, and you get all that time that you spent on something. You can now see it, and it's like the culmination of all those hours of work. It's like, here it is. It's tangible. It's concrete.
Yeah.
And I poured my life for that period of time into this product. And sometimes it doesn't work. And
Right. Yeah.
you're like, oh man, it broke. And then you go back to the drawing board. But it's other times it works great or whatever, works completely as designed, and it's a special day, and like everyone gets excited on hardware day. It's like,
Yeah.
whenever that comes and people want to see it. So it's special, and I love having something to show for my time, you
Yeah.
know, like, don't get me wrong, like relaxing, watching movies with the kids and the family
Yeah.
and stuff like that is special as well, that social time. But I, like me and my wife always want to show them, like by example, like, hey, to create something and have something to show for your time is such a special feeling. And
Yeah.
like anyone can ask you, hey, what'd you do this week? I built this, I
Yeah.
did this, like, I slammed through a whole season of, whatever. It's kind of like, oh, cool.
Yeah. Great.
It's not as fulfilling for sure.
Me and Jessica have basically kind of decided like Monday through Thursday is we're not going to watch TV. We're not
Cool.
going to, just lay around and
Hmm.
relax. We'll try and read, or I do the podcast thing.
Yeah.
I try and do music, or I work on my hobbies, or, just try and be productive.
Yeah.
Um, because we were kind of feeling that. We're like, every night kids go down, we're like, all right, well, what do you want to watch tonight? And then you just
Yeah.
lay around and you feel lazy and you don't get rest because you're just zoned out and in front of a TV. And then you wake
Yeah.
up, you're still up late, you're not getting
Yeah.
sleep.
Ah, no, yeah.
So it's like, well, what if we do that on the weekend and use the week to be productive with our time?
Yeah. Ah, it's great.
There's obviously times where we're just like, we'll just talk, or, nothing actually gets done, but we rarely will turn on the TV still because
Mhm.
we don't feel the need for it anymore.
Yeah. No, it's cool. That's
Yeah.
great for your relationship too, so.
Question two. I think most people view creators based on their end results and don't really see all that goes into the creation. Based on what you do, what are some things that are crucial to your creation that most people never see?
Um, well, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier where it's like when you're working on a component, um, or a piece of a larger assembly, and in the case of like building a section of the rocket down in Florida, the design work that goes into what you're building is a huge chunk of the project.
Right.
Like the prep work on the front end and all that design work is huge, and nobody sees that. Like nobody's going to even understand unless they're intimate to design and R&D, like development projects and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Unless they've done that, and which very few have, in the grand scheme of things, they don't understand what goes into it. It's like any project, like you like, oh, you can tell people who will bid out jobs or tell you all you got to do is, who don't have an intimate knowledge
Right.
of how to do the job. It's very simplified in their minds, and that translates through a lot of different industries and everything. It's just like, oh yeah, like I could paint my house, Sure, and paint my house. It'll take like a half a day.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, I can't reach more than 6 feet. You know, I can't paint higher than that. And my house is 2 stories. Okay. All right. Now the job just keeps getting expanding,
Bigger.
expanding
Yeah.
in difficulty. And I think a lot of people don't know what it takes or what goes into creating things. And not just like with what I do. I mean, you take two pieces of metal and try and bolt them together. You have them machined separately. You have to put in geometric tolerancing to make sure that those holes match up and that the bolts will go in. Because
Right.
you send out this part to this person, this part to this person, they drill all the holes, and then you put it together, and they've been drilled on different machines, and nothing is perfect. It's all perfect on the computer, but you have to tolerance it so that if you get a bolt that was manufactured in, you know, could have been manufactured in 10 different countries or wherever with different tolerances, and they give you a range, the bolt will be this big or this big, you know, and it has to fit no matter what. Well, people don't even know that that happens. You're like,
Right.
you know, you get a whole pattern that has 50 bolts that go into it. All 50 of those bolts have to fit in. And all those machine parts are coming from different places. And so they all have to go together. And that takes a lot of math to
Yeah.
figure that out. And then working with the vendor or working with your machinist on how to make sure that they are drilling exactly the right holes in the right places so that it matches with the other guy who's drilling the holes in the right places, you know. So that's one aspect of engineering that I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with is that
Yeah.
the tolerance band. And with rockets especially, we were in our assemblies, we're drilling holes to 1 thou tolerances. And I'm not sure if you have a gauge of what that is. 1,000th of an inch is the diametrical tolerance that we drill a hole at. So a credit card is right around 20 thousandths thick, right?
Mhm.
So, and I think a human hair would be like 5 thousandths thick. So like 1/5 of a human hair is all you're allowed of slop. And so that's where, you know, rocket engineering gets into that world of like, it's very difficult because there's no room for error, you know?
Right.
Um, and so that's kind of like, I've probably gotten way off of what you asked originally, but
No,
uh,
you're answering it. Like I wouldn't think about that. You
it,
know.
there's a lot that goes into it. Like, why can't you just be done already? I'm like, well, for instance, the fuel for our rocket was liquid oxygen, right? For the tank that I was building, liquid oxygen. That's Fahrenheit. Its liquid temperature is minus 300 plus degrees Fahrenheit. On ascent and descent of the rocket, because our rocket returned and lands, the external temperature could be up to like 1,200 degrees on the skin. There's no barrier between the exterior of the rocket and the internal tank temperature. You use the coolant or the propellant as coolant against the skin, and you use the heat from the skin to warm up the fuel or pre-warm the fuel in a way. But the thickness of the skin is at the thinnest portion is a quarter inch.
Jeez.
So between you have a 1,500 degree gradient traveling through a quarter inch of material. Like you have to put tons of engineering into that in order to make that work and not just melt or
Right.
be so brittle from the fuel that it just cracks up. There's a lot of stuff that it just teams of people thinking about, you know.
Yeah.
When you cool down all the material, it shrinks and it has to expand again. When you heat it up at 1,500 degree gradient, the rocket will grow inches in length. Well, how do you bolt something to something that's going to grow in inches and it's supposed to be rigid and it's going to withstand Mach 3 or something like that on the surface? You know, it's like, okay, how do you do all that stuff? You
Yeah.
know, like these are problems you have to solve like, through that. And now in what I'm doing now, it's like, oh, we need to slam 300,000 volts into like a 6 inch diameter, and it can't leave that diameter, that you have to build a feed through and dielectric that takes all that voltage and puts it into this device. It's just like, what? And by the way,
And
you
we
can't
need it
get,
by the end of the day.
yeah, stuff. It's like research stuff that we spend months on, and
Yeah,
like how to make that happen, like because electricity in an air gap will jump and shoot a bolt of lightning. It's like, and we did that a lot, trying to figure it out. It's like if something's within 3 feet at that voltage, it'll arc to it. So a bunch of weird stuff. I don't know this. What did you ask me again?
question 3. Do you believe you need to be passionate about what you create?
I think it definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think you have to. There's a lot of stuff now. Well, I mean, honestly, I did not have a much of a passion when it came to nuclear energy. Obviously, I was like big into aerospace. What I was excited about was going in to work on something that was emergent and new
Right.
and had never been done before. Rockets are cool. Rockets are awesome. SpaceX is landing rockets, and they've become way more prevalent in our world now than they were, when we were growing up. So the allure of getting into something that hadn't been done before, like figuring it out
Right.
for the first time ever, is something I was excited about. I don't necessarily think I ever thought about ever working on, nuclear reactors in that way. I'm like, is scary to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's, Chernobyl, Fukushima, all that, it's like, and what we're doing is vastly different from that, but it still had that stigma in my mind, as being, kind of strange and unknown and dangerous, and I'm highly visual. I love seeing things and fixing the problems in that way. Well, now I work with high voltage. I work with ions and atoms and stuff you cannot see. So, ion beams and pulse power situations and tons of high voltage. I can't see any of it,
Right.
and that was daunting for me because I knew I didn't have this innate like love for or passion towards it. That being said, it only took me about 6 months to be like, "This is cool." Like, I get it. Like, I don't understand it. I get the
Yeah.
I understand as much as I can, and I'm learning every day, and I really love that.
Yeah.
And the more I learn, the more I enjoy it. So, no, I don't think that it definitely shouldn't be a precursor to you doing something.
Right.
Uh, if everything else, is favorable about it, then don't worry if you're passionate about it. Like, that will come because for me, it was like, I wanna learn something new. I wanna be stretched. I want to, work on emerging technologies. I want to do something nobody's ever done before.
Right.
Those are things I'm passionate about. It didn't have to be aerospace, I still love aerospace. I was open to other things. And for me, I didn't discount it or not consider it because of that. I didn't have that like innate desire towards that industry. And so I would definitely encourage anyone to just kind of go for it. Just like, what's the worst that can happen? Like,
Well, in your field.
well, well, yeah, I'm a pretty big risk taker. I think when it comes to like, I'm not scared of change. I'm not scared of doing something. If I feel like that gut feeling or that what I believe like God calling me to do something, I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
I have a super supportive wife who's always like up for that adventure as well, within reason. And
Yeah.
but she tempers me a bit for
Right.
just doing this wild, stupid stuff. But when it comes to like, oh, I'm gonna pursue this, lucrative engineering position with a startup company in or a lucrative position as an engineer for a rocket company. There's not a lot of. I say I'm a risk taker, but it wasn't that risky, right? It was like, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, I used to sleep in a van at Walmart parking lots, for like 10 years of my life, on the road. Like, I could always go back to doing that, and I was happy. It wasn't like I was unhappy.
Right.
Like, obviously, life has changed, but we've been married for a long time. We've been married and had not very much at all, and we've still been happy. And so she's just like, "What's the worst gonna happen? Like, just go backwards, go in like your through your career. Like, you don't even go back that far. Oh, you're gonna go back and be an aircraft mechanic? Great. That was a great job,
Right.
So I've tried to make steps in my career methodical or thought out. And so I don't think I didn't want something that maybe didn't have the passion at the onset to
Mhm.
keep me from moving in a position that I think was important to go. So
Yeah. Listening to it, you kind of have a list of things that you're passionate about, and you saw that field kind of ticked a couple of those
yeah,
boxes. I definitely agree. I don't think you have to be passionate in order to create something. It seems like everyone kind of comes back to, yeah, you may not need to be passionate about the project, but you're passionate about learning, you're passionate about the journey, or,
yeah,
the final product, you enjoy the product, or you just love the process to getting to the final product, and you could care less about the final product. You just
yeah.
enjoyed getting there.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's like you don't have to have the passion, but really, I think that passion is there somewhere in the equation. It may just be harder to see, or you don't really understand what that passion was that
yeah.
made you jump into it.
Me and my wife, like we're remodeling our house, and we've done tons of work on it. I love the end result. I dislike very much multiple steps along the way. Like sheetrock, drywall, hated.
Yeah.
Can't stand doing drywall. I hate painting. I love things that are painted nice. So, yeah, the end result, kind of pushes you through some of those
Yeah.
passionless moments. So,
Yeah, definitely. Question number 4. I don't think your creation has to be good to grow from it. What are some things that you create that may not be considered great, but something you still gain a lot of value from? And then, do you have words of encouragement for those who get discouraged when their creations seem to fall short?
I think again, you're never going to be good at anything when you first start it. Like I think creating is you create out of your expertise and talents, and that's something that is evolving and being cultivated. And the things I create now are way better than the things I created before. And if I hadn't have done that, though, I wouldn't be creating the things I'm doing now. Working on my house, I'm doing a lot better on certain rooms, but I could see the other rooms that I did before, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that differently. But I'm still happy that I learned a skill. I learned something new or challenged myself or stretched myself in a way that I didn't know how to do that stuff. Like I didn't, yeah, I've never done flooring or, built a kitchen, from scratch, or my wife designed it all and she's like, we're going to build this. And I'm like, okay. Every time we get to those new things, it's like, yeah, I mean, like I tiled one whole wall in my kitchen. I didn't, it, it could be better, but it looks good. Now I'm just like, "Man, that's awesome." And now we both, like, learned a lot about how to do that, and that's just normal stuff. Yeah, I could have gone out and I could have paid somebody to do it, and while that's fine, no nothing against somebody who does that, but we wanted to do it together. We wanted to do it ourselves,
Right.
We rented a apartment for, like, 9 months when we first moved here, and it drove us nuts because 'cause we're like, "We don't have to do anything." Like, we don't have to like, we don't get to make this ours, Like, you can kinda do some of it, but so we bought a house and we just started tearing into it, So but, yeah, I think you're gonna build something, it's gonna suck, and you're gonna look at it and you're gonna be like, "Man, I spent so much time, and I probably could've just paid somebody to do this. I probably coulda just spent that time with my family or doing something else I like to do, and I woulda had a better result if I just paid somebody else to do it," or whatever, or I can't believe I wasted so much time on this. And it, I think that's a problem with a mindset. Hopefully, you'll learn from everything you do,
Right.
on how to do it better. There's at risk of just like trashing all the details. There was a study that they did in college about I forget what some university. They took two groups of students and they said, "All right, you group of student, you build." I think it was pots or pitchers or something like that. They said, "I want you to build the best pot you can." And this group of people, I want you to build as many pots as you can. And here's the amount of time you have. And they took those two groups and they set them loose. And in the end, the team that built the most pots had the better pot than the team who only focused on building the best pot
Interesting.
because they had iterations.
Right.
They just were slamming through pots, and they were like, "Well, you know what? If we do it this way, we can do it faster, and it's simpler. And now that simple task is highly repeatable, and now you get a much finer product in the end." And so constant iteration is a path towards perfecting something. It's never the first time. The first thing you build always garbage. Like it's always terrible. Like it's you build it, you're like, cool. I would tweak it this way. I would do this.
Right.
It's like insanely rare to build something and just hit a home run right away. It's like it's not going to be that.
Right.
You're always going to goof something up because there's going to be something you didn't think about. You know, there's so many unforeseen things. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to knock out all the ones that you do think about, or try and think hard about what those, hiccups will be in your final product. But don't be afraid of iterations, don't be afraid of failing at something just to try it, again, just to try and refine it. It's like, oh, we learned this, get that out of there. Now we learn this, get that out of there. Now we learn this. And then in the end, you will have a better product than somebody who just only builds one and tries to do that.
Question 5. Not all creators would consider themselves artistic. Do you believe you have to be artistic to live a life of creation?
No. Uh, Only because I'm not. No, I think there's diversity in all things, and there's a ton of flavors and everything, and everyone has different gifts and different talents. And if we all had the same one, then uh, it would suck,
Yeah.
So um, I think you could be an amazing chef, and some people wouldn't consider it artistic. You know, you could be someone who is a writer. I don't kind of maybe you're an artist, I guess. Like a novelist. There's obviously the artistic talents in my mind are like music and fine art or painting and stuff like
Right.
that or playwriting. I don't know. Maybe that's artistic, I guess. But shoot, I mean, I make stuff every day at work and I get paid to do it. And it's awesome. So I think you're better off being a creative who can you get paid for being creative. It's pretty
Right.
cool.
Right.
And it just so happens that my passions align with that, which is really, a wonderful thing if you can nail that down. But yeah, no. I think art is valuable and I love art that also is like has utility,
Right.
and that's where I think engineering and art cross. It's like in this like amazing design space that's like something that's beautiful and simple and does a job is like that's the ultimate goal, I think.
And I think you're kind of touching on it is whether it's art or not is also subjective to the beholder.
Sure.
Like my photos, I won't think they're artistic, but someone might. Someone I would consider a great chef artistic because I know I've tried cooking and I cannot do what they just did.
It's terrible at, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, just hearing a little bit about what you do is an art because it's very specific. It's got to be perfect. So much work goes into it. That bolt is now a piece of art in
Sure.
the eye of an engineer,
Yeah.
because you know everything that went into that. So maybe we're all artists, but it's just dependent on who's viewing it.
Yeah.
I go back to like I think everyone's a creator, and I think
Yeah.
really that's what we are, and everyone is a creator. And that if you're doing something that's fulfilling, you are doing what you're called to do and created to do.
Mhm.
So I think that's why we're all creators, created in specific, unique ways to produce something that is unique and special to us.
Yeah. It's innate in humanity, I think.
Question 6. Is there an experience or a time in your life where you realized you were a creator?
Yeah, I mean, when I was young and sitting in my room tearing apart electronics and motors and building model airplanes, I didn't know how to maybe say it at the time, but I was like, why is this so fulfilling? Like, why do I like doing this?
Right.
why do my parents think I'm weird, you know? But, we'd also, like, just always wanted to have something to show for it, you know? I got older, it was, like, turned into to motorcycles, you know? Like, I'd rebuild vintage motorcycles, you know, and I would do my best to get them running, buy like a $200 motorcycle and get it running and try and make it look cool, you know, look at like some rat cafe bike, you know, and
Right.
or bicycles. And me and my wife would buy bicycles from the junk guys who go up and down the alleys in Chicago and be like, "Hey, you got any bicycles?" And buy them for like $5, you
Right.
know, and take them and like turn them into fixed gears and spray paint them all cool colors and get a bunch of like, you know, flip-flop hubs or something and sell them on Craigslist. You know, we just like just had fun building stuff, you know.
Right.
And so I think early on I was like, I like doing this. And you know, I've known Bitsy since I was 10 years old, you know, so she was like always a partner in crime, you know, even when we were kids, you know, we were like building stuff together. It'd be like, oh, let's build a, you know, let's try and build a mini ramp, you know, in the church parking lot or something. And it's like
Right.
stuff like stupid stuff like that. But you know, it's grind rails, you know, so we could go skate. I think I had people in my life that were always around and encouraging me towards that, and I noticed that I enjoyed that and enjoyed that portion of those relationships, you know, so,
Yeah. Do you remember like at what age you were kind of starting to take things apart?
I probably started doing that right around, like, 9 years old,
Okay.
um
And did your parents just kind of have like, all right, here's some tool chests for you, or were you just kind of going out to the
No,
garage?
I got in trouble a lot, for taking tools, my dad was, like, okay with it, he was cool with it, but, you know, it took me a few, you know, swats on the butt before I stopped leaving his tools in the yard. Yeah, I mean, it started with Legos, like, when I was, like, 4, you know, like, that was as soon as I stopped eating them. Then, you know, I was like, it's a toy, right? Every kid likes Legos. I didn't realize that that would be, like, a strong indicator of being a builder or creative later in
Right.
life in that way. Because I love Legos, and I still love Legos. I still have a lot of Legos.
Yeah.
So it started probably with Legos, and then it was like, "Hey, everything else in life is kinda works on a similar methodology of, like, there's some standards here." You know, we use standard fasteners, and we use, standard, materials and stuff like that, and or common materials.
Right.
And if I can rearrange those in the same way or build something out of them, and apply a voltage or you know do whatever, then I can start messing with stuff. And I have this memory. I was probably like 11, and we lived in an old farmhouse in Chicago. You've been there, and it had skeleton key locks in the doors. And mine was broken, had been when we moved in, you know, and I had my own room finally. I was, like, super excited because like, whoever kept their room the cleanest got their own room for a little while, and I finally got my own room, and it had a broken lock, and I, like, found some skeleton keys somewhere, like, at a antique store or something like that, and I found one that fit into my lock, and then I pulled it apart, and I fixed the springs in it. It had, like, these old kinda, uh crazy, you know, just bent steel springs
Right.
to keep it working. And I fixed it and I put it back together and I was like, I like this. Like I love like wow, like I just spent like hours in my room tearing apart my door, you know, and fixing it. And in the end I had something that was useful to me. I had a oh
Right.
sweet, a locking door, you know. I was like, this will show my brothers, you know. I think I was just like, I can make my situation better through the use of my mind and the talents that I have, or the talents I would like to cultivate. I think I can do that, and I think that was the moment where I was just like that pivotal moment of like, I think this is like, I like this about me type of thing. My dad always included us on doing stuff, and it'd be like we had this old Dodge Caravan minivan, you know, like with the and he's just like, "Hey, let's go out. We're gonna fix it. You know, we're gonna do stuff." Like whenever anything broke, it was like there was no money to go get it
Yeah.
fixed, right? So it's like you fixed it or you didn't have it. So we just figured it out, you know, or he taught me because he had some mechanical mind as well or prowess, and The things I didn't know, it was before kind of YouTube got fully started with, like you could find anything. And
Right.
that's an awesome tool now to have.
Yeah.
I would go to the pick and pull, the junkyard, and I'd pay the $3 and I'd go in. This is like when I was a teenager. Um, and I would learn how to do the job on the junkyard car. So I'd take apart the thing that I needed to fix and then put it back on and then leave and then go do it on my vehicle,
Right.
or perhaps get something that I needed from there. But I did that a bunch of times. Like, and I started fixing cars for people in the church. I'd like, they would trade me like, you know, a 12 pack of Coke or something like that. It's for doing a fuel pump. It was like,
Right.
okay, cool. Or sometimes they pay me because it's like I was playing music and not making any money. And I just started doing fix it guy stuff. I just fell into that hard. I was like, I want to do this stuff.
Question 7. Was there a family member or a friend encouraging you to pursue your passion for creation?
Yes. Throughout most of my life, I've had really amazing people uh, guide me and or persuade me in certain ways to go for it. And when I was early on, it's my parents. They being homeschooled and being around them all the time, and them raising us and being very present in our life. Saw that or those gifts early on, like you are with your kids. Where it's
Right.
like you see them doing these things, and you can help kind of like nudge them in this direction of that parallels their gifts and talents. And so um, yeah, I had that with my parents. I was like working on cars, and I was like, I want to go be a mechanic, and my dad's like, okay, well, maybe you should be a aircraft mechanic, because he knew he's like, you like airplanes,
Right.
you're a good mechanic, and he's like, but as far as like a lucrative thing, you could pair these two together.
Right.
So they took me to Lewis University outside Chicago, and they had a AMP program, was Airframe and Power Plant Mechanics license program for the FAA, and they were like, here, you can, why don't you do this? I was like, cool, I'll do that. That sounds awesome. Like, it pays better and it's not as dirty. So, and then when it started playing music, they were like, hey, you have your AMP license. That's great. You can go do that. You could also do this,
Right.
and you can go back to that. You probably can't go back to this. Maybe you should pursue this right now. And I was playing drums and writing music. And so, and it was with my brother. So we pursued that. We had, like, once I was married, my wife just being like, hey, you're passionate about this thing. I support you in doing this. And I think you have a gift in this, you should pursue this and let's do it together. And having that person next to you, encouraging you, supporting you, in all those cases they were, because engineering pays the bills for sure. Now it doesn't when you're like trying to figure out differential equations, at
Right.
midnight, and you can't, working crappy jobs or multiple crappy jobs just to try and afford school and a house and having kids. It was like, it was very hard 5 years, and I couldn't have done it without massive support from my wife, in financially as well as just emotional support and encouragement through that. Same with my parents at that time, and even my siblings. My brothers and sisters and stuff, like, they were not stoked I left the band, but they weren't mad. They were like understanding, and they thought it was cool that I was going after something.
Question 8. Where do you find inspiration, and do you have a creative process once inspiration hits?
When I was writing music, no, not really. I felt like I was kind of a lazy music writer. If I didn't get it in that moment, like, I didn't sit and just like keep writing or keep doing, these lyrics need to be good. To me, it wasn't worth it. Like, it didn't feel inspired if I didn't if it just be like lightning hitting you, be like,
Right.
boom, that's it. I know it. And I came up with some good stuff, but I didn't have the passion to work at it, in that way. Now with engineering, you're presented with a problem and a set of requirements. Every engineering design starts with that. Somebody comes to you and says, we have this, we want to do this. Here are the requirements of what this has to do. Here's the environment it has to work in. You take all of that and you create, kind of a matrix of requirements that you have to achieve. And you kind of go methodically one by one through those and solve each problem as a set of individual problems. And that's the way kind of I do it now. I have to do something that does this task or fixes this problem in the system. How would I do that? Okay, well, it has to withstand this temperature. It has to move at this speed. It has to move at this distance. It has to deliver this item. I try and pick apart each one of those little things. I just recently made something called an auto grounding arm. It's very simple. It's a 4-bar mechanism that takes a ground strap, a piece of copper, and it moves that piece of copper 6 feet up and touches a power supply, and that way it safes it. So it grounds it so that people can approach it, because otherwise it could arc to an individual. So that power supply is hot. If they pass through a door or interrupt an interlock or like a safety mechanism and approach it, if it's not grounded or doesn't turn off, it will arc to the individual. So it's a safety device. And so I get requirements like, okay, it has to fail in a safe way. So that means if we lose power, if we lose air pressure, if we lose electrical, supplied power, whatever is happening, it has to shoot up and touch this thing. And it has to shoot 6 feet in a matter of seconds so that nobody can approach it or get within it's called the limited approach boundary within that time period. And I just finished it yesterday. It's a simple thing. It wasn't like crazy complicated or whatever, but it was very satisfying to build because it was fun. It was just like uses a safety relay and air power and springs, a bunch of different springs, and then a 4-bar like mechanical linkage, and it has to move 6 feet away so that it doesn't get arced to itself, like when the thing is actually running,
Right.
and then it has to translate 6 feet and then ground out the system so that's safe. It was fun. It was just like this cool problem. So that's the way I do it. It's like gathering requirements. Like that
Right.
is like the most important thing, because you don't want to waste all your time building something and they're like, oh, by the way, it can't be metal.
Right. Yeah.
Oh shoot, like that changes the design greatly.
Yeah.
Or it has to fit in this envelope,
I would imagine the engineering, because there's no room for error, you would need so many detailed instructions or just so much information in order to get it right.
Yeah, and there, don't get me wrong, there is some room for error a little bit.
Right.
Not in the final product, but like as you are building it,
Right.
there's always going to be something you got to change, but changes are expensive. Changes don't fit the schedule. Changes don't, so it's more about keeping those things and deliver a deliverable on schedule and on budget,
Right.
and it works well, and does what they want it to do. That's a thing of pride, like for engineers, to be like, sweet, I didn't destroy any one of those three.
Right.
The good, cheap, fast triangle type of thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Question 9. Not everyone gets paid to create something they are passionate about, but where do you see the value in people still pursuing their passions, even if they aren't getting paid? And then how can we encourage others to live a life of creation, even when their creations seem to go unnoticed?
Well, for sure, if you're passionate about it and it's something you love and you feel innate inside of you that you feel fulfilled in the creation of that thing or that medium or whatever it is that you love, that's you being your full self,
Right.
and you're not stifling anything about you, and I think there's value in that, for what it is. We were on tour. We were in New York City, and we were in Times Square walking around after a show. We walked into this diner. It's probably like 2, 3 in the morning. It was so late. I have no idea what time it was. And there was these 3 guys in the corner of the diner, and they were building model ships out of cereal boxes. Elaborate, like incredibly detailed sailing, pirate ships,
Right.
like traditional wooden ships. And it was cereal boxes. It was like Wheaties and like just exactly what you're thinking of, cardboard cereal boxes. They looked awesome. And I was just like, nobody's around. These guys were just building these things together. They're not worth anything. They're not like going to sell these things. They were actually upset at us for even interrupting them because we were like, "What do you do? This is awesome!" And they're like, "Leave us alone," you know. Uh,
We do this at 2 a.m. for a reason.
exactly. They did not want people around, and I was just like, "This is a wild place," like that's awesome. I mean that was their thing, like and they're killing it. They were so good at it, like
Yeah.
a creation going unnoticed would be hard for me because I like people. I like being around people. I like people experiencing what I make. And it doesn't have to be, I guess, but that would be one of the harder ones for me. It's like I definitely feel fulfilled when people notice what I do. And like, I mean, playing in the band, that's 100% of what you do. It's like if nobody noticed it or cared, why play music? It's like maybe there's a reason, but it definitely wasn't my motivation. It's like I liked the performance. I loved
Right.
the performance. I didn't like recording as much. I didn't even like people enjoying our music on their own. That was great, but that's not what I preferred. I preferred
Right.
like them being at the show and us like having this, relationship building moment together,
Right.
so or a shared experience. That would be the hardest out of that list is like, but I still think if that is your passion and it's not a medium that has to be enjoyed by others, I think, I think it's still worth it to do, even if it's for the sole purpose of you honing your skill or getting better at it,
Right.
I think learning, I hope I never stop learning something new. Like I hope that's what I can show my kids and be an example of for them. It's like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I am doing something I suck at for the sake of learning. Like
Right.
I started doing jujitsu about a year ago. There's never something more evident of sucking at than starting like jujitsu in just before I turned 40. It was like, but I was like, you know what? I want to learn something new. I want to learn something new, and I need to exercise. I'm gonna do this, and it's very a polarized experience. You know exactly how you're doing when you start fighting somebody because there's only winning and losing.
Right.
There's not really like a it's very obvious. Yeah. So no consolation prize
No.
things or participation trophy. It's like you won and you lost. It's very clear. But anyway, I had to work jujitsu in there sometime. There's
Right.
some
Yeah.
way.
There you go.
Born out of this desire to like constantly be learning and I'm doing it with my kids too. So it's like
Right.
something we can do together. So it's fun.
Question 10.
Right.
Last one. How would you like to see yourself grow as a creator?
I think that I love what I'm doing now. I would like to continue that. I would like to continue it and add in, I think, my kids and my family, if that makes sense. I think creating with a group, like what it was with the band, is really fun. And I think about how to do that with my family, like or with other people, I guess
Right.
I should say. But for me, it would be, with my family, I think, and teaching, my kids how to also create as well and helping them with that. I think in doing so, it would actually help me as well with the stuff I create, like brainstorming together and designing stuff. We build Legos all the time together and stuff like that. Like we really enjoy that together. My son's like insane about Legos. He loves them. They're always making stuff, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. While we were homeschooling, we bought like a 3D printer, and we started printing stuff, and showing the kids how to use 3D modeling software, and like letting them just like make goofy toys, or
Right.
make some stuff that was useful. And my wife was doing it, and like some nights we would be sitting at the table, the kids are building Legos or something, and me and my wife are messing around with 3D modeling, trying to build, hooks for our bathroom, you know, for towels, stuff like that. We're like, or some weird thing, and she's awesome. Like she's way better. Like when it comes to like artistic mindset and design.
Yeah.
Like she has so much. Like we should have spent the money, put her through school, and I should have. We joke about that quite a bit because it's like are like, "Man, you should have been the engineer," because she just, like, picks it up really well, and
Yeah.
we've always had, like, this desire to do stuff together, and what I do now is great, but it's hard to, like, share that in it's like, "Hey, you wanna build this rocket together?" What? No, it doesn't make sense. It's like, it's not really like something that you can do together,
Right.
or what I do now, even. And we're kind of like working in some ways of like how to make that happen, like how, like maybe starting a business together and stuff like
Right.
that, and working on product design or development together, or just using whatever gifts we have together. And I think that aspect of my creative side, without negating like how much I like what I do now, it'd be nice to use that within a family business or towards my our own thing. And I think that would be a neat way to grow in that.
How can I start including, my friends, my family, the ones who are close to me? Ultimately, that's who we want to be around anyway. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, me and Bitsy said it when we were before I made the exit from the band, is we got married because we wanted to spend every minute together, and now I tour all the time.
Right.
And when I was at Blue Origin, it was like, we got married, started a family because we wanted to be together, and you're gone a lot,
Yeah.
Florida a lot, working, at the Cape Canaveral and stuff like that. So I brought them with as much as I could, but they have lives here. It's like it's difficult at times, but we've kind of made steps along the way to try and be together as much as possible. It's like the people I love, favorite people on earth. It's like of course I want to do stuff with them. And if what I'm doing isn't working towards moving us closer to that, then I make a change, even if it's stepping away from something like that I really like, or something that might be secure or have a nice safety net of stability or something. If it's not working, let's change it. That's something me and Bitsy have been very focused on. It's like, hey, it's like we only have a finite amount of time in this world,
Right.
and to spend it doing something you don't like is seems like it's just such a huge waste. And I think more people spend their life that way than they'd like to admit. But
Yeah.
it's like it's a trap. So and I think maybe I do at times too. It's like maybe you flow in and out of that area.
Yeah.
But which I think is creating things like a material thing, or creating opportunities, or something that help open up your mindset and get you out of your daily loop of cycles and stuff like that, and be like, hey, I made this thing. People said it was really good. Could I turn that into a job? Could I turn that into a business or a side hustle? Or can I do, this, right? And it's like,
Right.
maybe it's not going to be lucrative at first, or ever, but maybe that'll be my passion. Maybe that'll be the thing that I love doing,
Right.
and my normal job just supports it. It's like that's nothing wrong with that, but to just be like in a position that you're just angry about all the time and complain about all the time, and then never changing it, or being too
Yeah.
scared to change it, I think it's just like that's got to be the worst ever.
That's why I did start the podcast, because I was like, I needed something to kind of just, change my rhythm a little bit. Because
Sure.
I mean, I work a 9 to 5 photo job, so everyone dreams of that. But at the end of the day, you're like, well, sometimes it's a job. I spend more time on
Yeah.
the computer administrating or managing, or so I'm like, I want a totally different creative outlet, and so I'm like, YouTube, just dive in
Oh,
and do
it's great. It's an
it.
awesome outlet for so many people, right? And
Yeah.
to do whatever. And people who create content about like their hobbies or things that they create themselves, so interesting. Like it's
Yeah.
super, like I care more about how people make stuff than what they're making all the time. I'm just like, how'd you do that? Can you show me?
Right.
Like, I want to see the guts of this. I don't like that show, how it's made. Love it. Like I just I was like, this is awesome.
I had a friend give me an old estate pipe because I was getting
Mhm.
into kind of cigars and pipes, and
Sure.
he gave me one, and I just dove straight in the rabbit hole of how do I clean it? How do I make it look good again? How do I do this? And it's like I had so much fun
Sure.
researching that.
There you go.
And then doing it actually myself, I'm like, this is super satisfying. And I actually just cleaned two
Yeah.
more this
Oh,
week.
cool.
It's fun. He gave me some more,
Yeah.
and mindlessly sanding and just like, this is great. It smells terrible. Like
That's awesome, man.
YouTube University, right? It's the best.